Welcome to The Explainer. Let's jump right in. Today we're breaking down a really fascinating psychiatric perspective on something so common, yet so deeply misunderstood. We're talking about why taking a month of mental health leave doesn't just magically cure burnout. If you or someone you care about has ever had to step away from work because of just absolute extreme exhaustion, you'd probably expect that after a few weeks of sleeping in, you'd feel completely refreshed, right? Well, the clinical reality is actually vastly different. And this brings us to a question that causes so much deep, lingering anxiety for people. It's this thought of, okay, it's been a month. I've been staying in bed, so why on earth aren't I getting better? You might be dealing with this intense, heavy physical sensation, or maybe profound guilt that you're somehow burdening your coworkers. Or worse, this overwhelming fear that you're just permanently broken. Look, if you're feeling this way, I really want to validate that for you right now. Today's explainer is going to answer this exact fear and show you exactly why what you're experiencing is actually completely normal. So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover anxiety right after leave, the lingering battle mode, the transition to noticing fatigue, the true start of recovery, and finally, your job right now. Let's start with section 1, anxiety right after leave. There is a massive, stark contrast between our expectations and clinical reality. We all expect that after a month off, we should be fully recovered, completely recharged, and ready to jump right back into work. But the reality? Feeling terrible at the 1-month mark is perfectly normal. It's an expected progression, not some kind of delayed recovery. In fact, according to Psychiatric Insights, very, very few people are actually ready to return to work this quickly. So you really don't need to panic and think, why am I the only one who's healing so slowly? You're actually right on track. All right, moving on to section 2, the lingering battle mode. Psychiatrists refer to this thing called battle mode. It's basically a state where your mind and body remain completely tense and are just totally unable to switch off. When you decide to take a leave of absence, your brain doesn't just flip a switch and say, oh, okay, we're chilling now. You've spent a really long time, maybe months, maybe even years, pushing way past your absolute limits, just living in this state of super high tension. And all of that extreme strain carries right over into your leave. It's sheer biological momentum keeping you in a state of high alert. In real life, battle mode is incredibly specific. Ask yourself, are you still checking work emails even though you're officially on leave? Do you feel immense crushing guilt towards your coworkers? Do you have this frantic, totally irrational urge to return to the office in just a week because you're panicking at the mere thought of resting for a whole month? If you're experiencing these things, listen closely. This is not weak willpower. This is your mind and body, which have been fighting a war for so long, literally just continuing to fight. You might look like you're resting on the couch, but internally, you haven't started resting at all. Which brings us to section 3, the transition to noticing fatigue. Let's walk through the actual psychological steps of this first month. Step 1, like we just talked about, is being totally stuck in battle mode. But step 2 is where the magic shift happens. Over the course of about 4 weeks, all that tension slowly finally begins to loosen up. Your brain starts to genuinely accept that it doesn't need to fight anymore. And then we hit step 3, which honestly is often the scariest part for patients. You suddenly realize how deeply exhausted you truly are. It literally takes a full month just to get your brain to this realization. This is a massive turning point. You might sit there and feel like, man, I'm getting worse. I just rested for a month, but my body feels so much heavier. I have zero concentration and absolutely no motivation. But the psychiatric perspective uses this truly incredible metaphor. The armor of tension has fallen off. You aren't getting worse. For the absolute first time, you are simply feeling your true exhaustion. You're finally unmasking just how completely broken down you actually were beneath all that adrenaline. Now for section 4, the true start of recovery. Let's just completely reset your expectations here. On day 1, your leave begins, sure, but you're stuck in battle mode. It isn't until the 1-month mark that the tension finally drops and that true fatigue is actually felt. What does this mean? It means month 2 and beyond is when actual recovery finally begins. After 1 month, you haven't failed to heal, not at all. You have simply just reached the starting line. You've literally spent a whole month just preparing your body to begin recovering. So let's pose a really critical question that naturally pops up right about here. If you're feeling super guilty or you're panicking about this perceived lack of progress, what actually happens if you rush back to work right now at this 1-month mark? Well, the clinical answer is stark. Returning now leads to immediate relapse. It's that simple. If you rush back when your recovery has barely even started, you are highly likely to break down again in less than a month. And when that happens, the self-blame becomes so much deeper, which pushes your ultimate healing much, much further away. The anxiety you feel urging you back to work makes total sense, but acting on it right now is incredibly dangerous. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, your job right now. We really want to deliver this medical directive directly to you, and honestly, it might just be the greatest doctor's note you'll ever receive in your life. Do unproductive things, be lazy, rest your brain. Yes, you heard that right. Laziness is now a clinical requirement. Doing absolutely nothing is exactly what your brain requires to rebuild itself. Paradoxically, we really need to reframe your lack of activity. Let's make it your new mission. Your job right now is to rest. If you're someone who is super driven by work, who feels intense guilt when you aren't being productive, you literally have to mentally categorize resting as an active, vital job. It is, without a doubt, the single most important task you have on your plate today. And please remember, you aren't going to be stuck like this forever. When you are truly rested, the motivation to do things you love and, yeah, eventually the motivation to work again will return entirely on its own schedule. You don't have to force it. It's gonna happen completely naturally once your energy reserves are finally replenished. Now, we absolutely must acknowledge that everyone's pace is different. If you still can't enter resting mode after a month, or if financial anxiety is practically forcing you to rush, please do not face it alone. Consult your doctor or talk to trusted people in your life. It is not rare at all to need some extra help transitioning out of battle mode, so rely on your support system rather than just white-knuckling it and rushing back to work. Let's quickly summarize the core lessons of today's explainer. First, not healing in 1 month is entirely 100% normal. Second, feeling worse actually means the tension armor is off. It is a sign of progress, not regression. Third, actual recovery only just starts at month 1. And finally, your one and only job right now is to rest. Your current state is a perfectly normal, absolutely necessary biological process. Which leaves us with one final thought to reflect on today. Knowing that your exhaustion is completely valid and that laziness is clinically prescribed, are you ready to become an absolute professional at doing nothing? Close your laptop, silence your phone, and give yourself absolute permission to embrace total rest today. Thanks so much for joining me on The Explainer, and hey, good luck with your new job.